Because building businesses isn't easy. If it was, everybody would do it.
They overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year, and then they underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years.
That's the real game. When you start playing that chess game of, do I have all the right pieces on the board that are experts in their field? Then that's when, to your point, that's when your business will start growing without you, because you have all the right experts in the right seats.
It's almost like you want to be the dumbest guy in the room.
It's called the emotional cycle of change. Okay, so when you start something new, you start with uninformed optimism.
How did you move from Airbnb rentals to your first boutique hotel? Welcome to Built to Scale, the podcast where vision meets action. I'm your host, Quinn Schilz. This is the podcast where we break down how real-time entrepreneurs actually built their businesses step by step. Today's guest went from being a CPA in corporate America to owning multiple boutique hotels and leading one of the biggest short-term rental conferences in the world. He's helped thousands of people escape the 9-to-5 through his short-term rental secrets community, and he's here to give us the roadmap on that first deal to scaling the hospitality empire. Welcome, Michael Sjogren.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome to have you on. Michael, for the people who might know you, who is Michael Sjogren in your own words?
I'm a father and a husband first. And basically, I was just a guy that got sick of the 9-to-5 grind. And we can talk about that story in a minute. But I just drew the line in the sand, said, I'm not going to live like this anymore, and just committed to entrepreneurship to get myself and my wife out of the rat race and then help as many people as possible do the same.
Awesome. You were deeper in corporate finance. What was the moment you realized I can't do this for 30 more years?
Yeah, so back in 2016, I was working for an international company, had a nice cushy 6-figure job in finance, and our son was born. And he was born with a very rare lung disease called interstitial lung disease. And basically, anytime he fell asleep, he needed to be on oxygen, and we had oxygen tanks at the house and all this craziness. And
Wow.
We spent a lot of time at Boston Children's Hospital with doctors and the best pediatric specialists in the world trying to figure out what was going on. And at a certain point, I ran out of vacation time. I ran out of sick time. I had all these medical bills piling up, and I had to leave my wife and my baby in the hospital to go back to a cubicle to trade time for money. And it just broke me, man. Like I was just so frustrated with myself that I put my family in that situation. And so the day that I left the hospital, I told my wife, I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to find a way to build us a business that gives us the income we want without ever trading time for money again. And within a year and a half, I scaled up our short-term rental portfolio to 15 properties across 5 different states.
Wow.
And was able to retire myself, my wife, and my mom through short-term rentals, and then have continued to scale it since then. But that was that moment. A lot of pain, a lot of heartache, and it was just the fuel to get me up and going.
Was real estate always part of the plan?
It was probably in my mid-20s after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and starting to go to some real estate meetups.
Nice.
I thought it was going to be through multifamily syndication, honestly.
Okay.
I was working with some coaches and trying to raise money and find deals and do all this stuff, and I just wasn't gaining any traction. And then once everything happened with my son, I met a gentleman in a mastermind group. This is back in like 2017. That was doing what we now know as Airbnb arbitrage. So he was going out and renting apartments and furnishing them and then re-renting them on Airbnb and Vrbo. And he was telling me how much money he was making doing that. And I was sold on the short-term rental model. I didn't love what he was doing with the renting and re-renting. He wasn't telling the landlords what he was doing. It just felt kind of shady and borderline illegal. But it made sense that if I could rent a property by the night and charge more than renting it by the year. And so I told my wife, I said, this is the vehicle that we're going to use. I cashed out my 401k, got some 0% interest credit cards, and we bought a little 2-bedroom condo up in the mountains in New Hampshire. And just like this guy said, it was cash flowing about $1,500 a month. We could use it every once in a while if we wanted to. And it was working, but I couldn't live off of $1,500 a month. I needed to get to $15,000 a month to get my wife and I out of our jobs. And so I started thinking back to all the multifamily people that I had met over the years, investing in apartment buildings. And I was like, well, what if I what if I could like partner with them and just rent some of their units on a short-term basis versus a long-term basis? I'll do everything. I'll design it. I'll build it out. I'll do the listings, the pricing, the guest communication, cleanings, all that stuff. And I'll just take a percentage because I know I can make them way more money this way than they're making with their long-term rentals. And so it took me 9 months to get that very first, what we call co-host deal, where I'm managing somebody else's property. But within a couple of months of getting that first deal, I had 4 more. So we had 5 properties. Within that first year, one of them I owned, I was managing 4 more. And then a year later, we had 15 properties across 5 different states, and we were off to the races.
How did you go from that first deal with the credit cards to 15 properties?
Managing other people's properties. So like I was doing everything, man. I was, again, remember, I was a CPA by trade. So I'm really good with numbers and analyzing deals, but I sucked at selling. I didn't know how to pitch. I didn't know how to do anything. So I was trying everything under the sun. I was, cold outreaching people on Craigslist and Zillow and all these places that had properties for rent and pitching them on they should do it short-term rental and partner with me and all this stuff. I was hosting local meetups. I was going to networking events. I was doing a ton of stuff. And eventually it panned out. I ended up getting 1 deal from my meetup. I ended up getting a deal from a co-working space that I was renting a desk at a couple days a week. I ended up getting a deal from a referral from somebody in my network. And so I just kept pushing, man. It was 9 months of grinding with no results until finally we ended up getting a little bit of momentum behind us, and then things took off pretty quick from there.
So you were literally like cold calling not agents maybe, trying to get in touch with who the owner is and just saying like, hey, this is what we do. We're gonna, you can make a lot more money if you do short term versus just a normal lease, and I can help you with it and handle everything, and kind of like that, huh? Just going, hitting the pavement.
That's it, man. And this is before Airbnb was a big thing. So most people thought it was a scam, and it was pretty rough for that first year. But
would you utilize like both platforms, like VBRO and Airbnb, for all the properties and just have them so they're marketed everywhere?
Yeah, for sure.
So that very first deal that you guys took out the credit cards for and put together in New Hampshire, how can you take us back to that deal? Like, how did you find it? How much risk were you feeling you were taking on at the time? Maybe somebody out here is listening. They're like, you know what, I want to get my first property. And so what was that like for you at the time? Cashing out the 401k.
It's going to be terrifying for anybody doing that first deal. But I was just in enough pain that I was willing to just go for it. Most people, the biggest problem is they're too comfortable, right? Like they're in some job that's paying all their bills, probably a little bit left over for savings. They're not loving what they're doing, but they don't hate it enough to really push and get outside of their comfort zone. So that first deal was terrifying. Mm-hmm. And for context, some people are going to think this is so small now, but at the time it felt so big. Like we bought that first deal for $177,000 and put 40 grand down and then 25 grand on a credit card to furnish it and fix it up. That felt terrifying to me. At the time I was making around 80 grand a year salary with like bonuses and things like that. My wife was making a little bit as well. So like we weren't raking it in by any means, and we had all those medical bills. So it was definitely a leap of faith. But my intuition was like, this is it, man. You just got to trust the process and just go for it. Because if you don't, you're going to stay here for the rest of your life. So you got to make a move.
Still coming up.
When you started your business, was it like that during those brutal years of building it?
No, because they don't teach you that stuff in school. Like the whole like grind and work hard and David Goggins and all this stuff. Like that's how I lived.
SoCal homeowners, why pay $15,000, $20,000, or even $30,000 for a new roof when instead you can get a new roof for only less than $100 per month? Here at Master Roofing, we serve homeowners with high-quality roofs with no hefty upfront costs. So give your house the roof it deserves with 0 down and low monthly payments. Why wait? Click the link below to get you a roof you deserve for payments you can afford.
When did you feel like this is actually going to start working? Like I can turn this into a business, and it wasn't just kind of like the first deal? Because I'm assuming you were still doing the CPA job, right, when you got the first one. It's correct me if I'm wrong.
I was working 60 hours a week as an accountant. I was side hustling on the weekends as an architectural photographer. So taking pictures of new apartment buildings and just to bring in some extra money to pay the hospital bills. And then I was spending some nights and few hours on weekends with my family in the hospital while building this business. So when people tell me that they don't have enough time, that's a lie. You just don't want it bad enough. You just got to make the time. And I remember a mentor of mine said something to me. He's like, man, if you can just push for the next 2 years and live the next 2 years of your life like most people won't, you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. And he was 100% right. Those first 2 years were brutal, but it was totally worth it now. My life is completely different than it was, whatever that was, 8 years ago when I first started this thing. You just got to persist long enough. There's that 3 feet from gold. As you're getting things going, it feels like it's taken forever. Then you get a little momentum, and then you hit a roadblock, and then you got to pick yourself up and do it again and again. And it's this roller coaster ride. That's why it's so important to have a strong enough reason why you're doing this thing, because building businesses isn't easy. If it was, everybody would do it, but it's worth it if you can stick it out, if you want it bad enough.
How does somebody know when it's they want it bad enough, or when, because maybe people are, you said three feet from gold, right? I was actually just talking about this on a podcast earlier with somebody, and you're always like that, that Instagram thing of the guy with the pickaxe and there's like diamonds right on the other side, and he gave up and walked away. Like, you talk about it now, like 8 years ago, right? That's a long time from when all this started. And you're saying when it started, it was just crazy, like getting off the ground and up and down and up and down. When did you start feeling like it started like balancing out, or the hard work has paid off, and maybe you were able to build systems and processes? Like, when did that all shift for you?
Probably right around the end of that second year. So once I hit, probably the middle of that second year, once I hit 8 properties, I was, again, like, my goal was to get to 15 grand a month without trading time for money. So in my mind, it's like, once these things are up and running, this portfolio can't take more than 4 hours a week of my time. Like, those were my guideposts as I was building this. And I was really good with process and systems, with a background as an auditor and corporate finance and internal audit and all these things. So I was really good with process. So I had really good process and automation and systems as I was building it up. But once I got to 8 properties, I found like I couldn't keep going unless I started hiring people. And that's the next phase of the business, right? So you get this thing off the ground, you're tapped out on hours. The only way to keep growing is to start bringing on people, to start duplicating yourself. And I had no idea how to hire people. And so I went through about 4 or 5 virtual assistants before I realized maybe they're not the problem. Maybe I just suck as a leader. And started thinking through, okay, what would a good hiring process look like? Who do I actually need? What skill sets and natural tendencies should this person have based on the role that I want them to do? And started really curating a whole hiring process and then an onboarding and training process. Because I had a great SOP playbook. But imagine if you get hired by some company and on the first day, they literally just send you a Google Drive file with 200 SOPs in it. And they're like, here you go, boss. Here's the whole playbook for running this business. Just go through these and figure it out. That's basically what I was doing when I was hiring people. And it's just a recipe for disaster, obviously. When you say it out loud, you're like, yeah, clearly that's not going to work. But that's how most people hire. Or they'll hire somebody and say, hey, you're just going to shadow me for 2 weeks. That's not an onboarding process. It's like a buddy system, right? So you really want to create systems and process around getting the right people, onboarding them, and then retaining them. So once I got to that point, there was a lot of learning lessons in the hiring process. And again, at each level you get to, there's going to be new challenges. So you're never just coasting in business. If you do, somebody else is going to come and take your lunch. So finding ways to stay hungry and keep growing.
Talk to me about your onboarding process now, because I think there's probably a ton of people in business right now that, have put the SOPs together, and they have, like, they hire somebody and they think, well, if I'm giving them the SOPs, I gave them the training, and, it's on them if it's not working. But it took you, say, 4 people before you realized I got to create a good onboarding plan. How do you onboard, and you can pick any department, but how would you onboard somebody to put them in a place where they're comfortable with those SOPs?
So I'll give you a couple frameworks here. So now our process is really robust, probably overkill for most folks that are just starting. We have a 100-day onboarding journey that maps out the first 100 days, what they're going to work on, what are the touch points? When are we going to meet with them? All of these things, right? What I would say is have at least the first 2 weeks mapped out of what are all the different things that you want somebody to learn. And just remember this mantra. So I do, we do, you do. So anytime you're going to train somebody on something, have them watch the SOP. Then the next time that task needs to be done, you're going to do it and they're going to watch you do it. Then the next time they're going to do it and you're going to watch them do it. And when they're done, you're going to give them feedback. And maybe you need to do that 1, 2, 3 times. Then once you're comfortable that they've done it while you've watched and they've executed at least 80% as good as you, then the third time around is you do it. So they're going to do it on their own and then you review it later. So I do, we do, you do. And then that way it gets them the reps, gets them comfortable, and then you can move on to another task. So I found that works the best. Is it time consuming? Yes, of course. But you're making an investment into a person. I'm in the real estate space, so people are used to making investments into properties to fix them up, to design them right, to furnish them, do all these things. They're okay with that capital investment in a building. You got to make the same level of investment into your people, because the reality is your people are going to give you a higher return than any piece of property you're going to buy. So be willing to make that investment with your team. And then as you build out your team, now I don't onboard anybody anymore. My team is going out, finding, recruiting, onboarding, leading, training, doing all of those things, but you need enough scale to do that. So you're doing the reps at first to bring them on and train them, and then eventually they're going to go out and recruit and train new folks for you.
That's another thing that comes to mind when you say that, is that, like, right now I could leave my business and it would run without me, but if I leave right now, if I'm being honest, it's not going to grow without me. So how did you work on the business in a way that it grows without you? They still recruit, they still train, they still onboard. How did you is it just putting systems in place for those things, or how did you do that?
So let me ask you this. What is the role of the CEO?
The role of the CEO in my head is you're the quarterback. You're making sure everybody else is doing their job and pushing each of the leaders to be successful with their teams.
So I would say that's the role of the COO,
okay,
Chief Operating Officer. The role of the CEO is to have the vision for where the business is going and set the targets for the team to hit. And then the COO delegates those responsibilities and makes sure everybody hits those targets. But your key role as the CEO is to cast the vision for where you're going and then ensure that your team has all the resources that they need to execute on that vision. Because when the team is clear about where they're going and how their specific role plays a part in that bigger vision, that's when you start getting momentum. And then you start building a culture of when we win, you win. So all of my direct reports, I know all of their personal goals. And when we win as a company, it tees them up to hit all of their personal goals. So as you're building and you want to recruit great people to your team, your vision has to be so big that everybody else's vision can sit inside of it. Otherwise, they're going to leave you for somebody else with a bigger vision.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's awesome. I love how you broke that down, especially as the CEO and the COO. So how did you find your COO?
They just grew up through the ranks.
Really?
So
okay.
We have quite a few companies now, right? So we have the whole real estate portfolio.
Okay.
We have the coaching business. My wife has her interior design business. We've got some other businesses. So on the property side, somebody that was working for me, kind of almost like an assistant at first, just helping me with a lot of different stuff early on. Then that person grew into a little bit more of a manager where they were like managing some different people and doing some, pricing and different things like that. And then eventually that person became the COO of that business.
Nice.
On the coaching side, it was actually a student that came through, got really good results, quit their job, wanted to give back. So they started doing some just giving back in the community, helping answer different people's questions. Then they started helping me with some webinars and trainings that I was doing. Then they started taking sales calls for me. Then they started doing some formal coaching inside of the community for me. And now that person has pretty much done every single role inside the business, and they're the COO running the entire show at this point.
That's pretty amazing. So they oversee all of your businesses, and you're setting the targets and where you guys need to go, and his job is to execute and do those, right?
Exactly.
Have you read the book Traction by Gino Wickman?
Absolutely. I think I have it somewhere around here. I just moved into my new office, but yeah, we've been running EOS for a long time.
How did you start implementing it into the business? Because we've been trying to implement it into ours, and I think that's the hardest part of.
Have you hired an implementer?
I have not.
So that's what I did.
Okay.
I hired an implementer they literally came in, went through the entire EOS system with me and the, formerly manager, now COO, to walk us through the whole process. They came to our meetings. They actually ran a couple meetings. Then they handed it over to us. And then we checked in with them on, I think it was like a 6-month engagement. But hiring a person like that will really help actually implement this whole system. So that would be my recommendation.
I appreciate that. You're not the first one to tell me that, so I think I should look into getting somebody in to help us implement that. So for what I'm reading here, you started scaling to 20 properties across 5 states. So managing like all the properties I'm assuming you built an entire team to help you with that process. How did that happen?
So here's what I will tell everybody to do. Okay, as you're scaling, and again, I've just hired people that are way smarter than me to coach me along the way as I've run into bottlenecks. But what you're going to do is you're going to create a simple calendar in Google Sheets. So Sunday to Saturday from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. in 15-minute increments. And you're going to print 2 copies of that thing out. And then for the next 2 weeks, every 15 minutes, you're going to write down what you're doing. Now, this is everything from brushing your teeth and showering to, having dinner to the specific work tasks that you're working on. And you're going to do a full 2-week time study. And at the end of those 2 weeks, you're going to go through and you're going to analyze how much time did I spend on things that I wanted to do, like outside of work. And then inside of work, was this like tactical, mechanical stuff, or was this working on the business? And you're going to look at the things that were tactical. And are those things actually driving the business forward, or is it just part of your fulfillment process? And then you're going to start to create a list of everything that you are going to delegate to somebody else so that it frees you up to spend more time on growing the business instead of operating in the business. And then that list becomes what I call your 4R document, which is basically your job description. So the 4 R's is what's the role, what are the responsibilities, what are the results that person is responsible for, and what are the requirements. And then you're going to go out and find somebody to do those things that you need to get off your plate. And so at each phase, as you continue to grow the business, your job is to delegate all the things that are not in your zone of genius and are moving the business forward to somebody else on your team. So you're just continuing to reinvest into the business to build out the infrastructure so that eventually you're sitting at the top in that CEO role if that's what you want to do.
And as you start building a team, when do you know it's time to fire somebody or let them go?
So first thing is look in the mirror. Did you set that person up for success? And are you communicating with them? Again, if you're following EOS or any other like business operating system, you're going to have meeting cadences. But the biggest thing is, are they clear about what their role is, what their responsibilities are, and what results are they responsible for driving? Once you start delegating results instead of tasks, your life is going to get so much better because it's going to empower your team to take ownership over key things in your business. And my team will tell you, I don't care how you do it. I just care that the results get done. So I'm not telling people exactly what to do anymore. I'm just saying, hey, these are the results that we need. You tell me what you need from me. If you need feedback from me, that's fine. We can meet, we can review all of that. But this is what we need done. This is when we need it done by. And here's why it's important to the overall vision. When you start doing that, everybody is rowing the boat in the same direction. Because what happens for myself and most people when you start hiring, you bring somebody on and you give them a list of tasks to do. You're going to do this and this and this and this. And as that person finishes that task list, say they have no questions and they blow through that task list, then they come back to you and they say, okay, what else do you have for me? And then you give them another task list, and then they burn through that, and then they come back to you. What else do you need me to do? Instead, you want to delegate the actual results that you want that person to drive, right? If it's a brand new person and they have no training on it, you're going to have to coach them up on that. But as you scale, your goal should be to attract and recruit higher level people that have experience, so that at a certain point, they're telling you what you should be doing. That's the real game. When you start playing that chess game of, do I have all the right pieces on the board that are experts in their field? Then that's when, to your point, that's when your business will start growing without you, because you have all the right experts in the right seats. And you're just continuing to recast the vision.
It's almost like you want to be the dumbest guy in the room, and you have such a great, strong team around you that they know exactly. Finance knows the direction they're supposed to go in. Operations knows where they're supposed to be going. A lot of the things you said remind me of the book from Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time. Is that something that you've read and implemented a lot into your business, and how you kind of built your team?
It's a great book, because somebody gave me that book like a year ago, and they were like, dude, you literally like say all the same stuff. And I hadn't read the book yet.
Wow.
So I agree with everything that he says. And I think he said one of the phrases and things that we teach and help people like through is developing your perfect average week. I think he might have that, or your perfect average day. There's a lot of alignment between us, like what he wrote in that book. But you really want to architect, you want your business to serve you. So like, what would your ideal week look like? And then build the business around that. Now at the beginning, you don't have that liberty. Like, you're doing everything. And yes, you want to hire people that are smarter than you, but realistically at the beginning, you probably don't have the budget to hire those people.
For sure.
So you have to get good enough to drive results, and then bring people on, train them to bring them up. If you have more capital, like if you look at a traditional software business, they're going to go raise $50, $100 million to go recruit those people to them to figure it out. Most companies, most small businesses in the US don't work that way. We bootstrap them. So you have to figure it out, and then bring in whoever you can afford to train them up to get to that point. But your goal should be, as you scale, you're reinvesting that money into top talent. So then the business continues to grow, and it's a lot more passive for you. And you're just focusing on the vision and getting the right people on the bus.
So switching over to scaling to hotels, how did you move from Airbnb rentals to your first boutique hotel?
So in 2019, I got invited to a mastermind event in Puerto Rico with a bunch of short-term rental managers. They were way bigger than me. I had maybe 7 or 8 properties at the time, but I knew the guy running the event, and he let me come kind of help run the event for him and whatever. So I was like a fly on the wall at this event. And then they invited me to share what we called like hot seats. So like, what was I working on and what did I want feedback on? And I knew, because again, I was studying commercial real estate for years with the apartments. I'm like, the next logical step is to get into hotels. I'm already running 15 or a bunch of properties all over the place. What if I could just get a hotel? That would be way faster, and take all these things that I've learned from the STRs and implement them in the hotels to reduce the overhead and increase the revenue. And so I was looking at this deal that was, I think, like 80 rooms. It was basically like a vacation resort, and I wanted to buy the whole resort. And I had talked to somebody that I was managing properties for that was a much bigger real estate developer and had been in the business much longer than me. And they were interested in the project and partnering on it. And so I brought it to this event, and I remember pitching it, and everybody in the room basically said it was the dumbest idea ever, and I was way over my head.
With the boutique hotel?
Yeah, it was basically buying a resort, like a vacation home resort.
Okay.
And they were like, listen, man, you're in way over your head. You're never going to pull this off, blah, blah, blah. And it lit this fire under me of like, screw you guys, like just watch. And so this was in June of 2019. That deal didn't end up penciling, but that same person that I was going to partner with ended up finding another hotel and brought it to me. And he's like, hey, what do you think of this one? Mm-hmm. And long story short, we ended up partnering on that hotel, and it's absolutely crushed. Like, we still have it today. So my very first hotel deal came from somebody that I was managing properties for. And I just knew like the commercial real estate was the lane that I wanted to be in, because there's so much more upside and you have so much more control over the value of the property. So I'll just, for the listeners out there that aren't familiar with real estate, hang with me here for like 60 seconds, okay? I go buy some $500,000 house. I put some money into it, And let's say when I bought it originally, this person was renting it, and say they were bringing in $50,000 a year on Airbnb. After I come in with my team and we fix it up, we make it amazing, we start bringing in $100,000 a year. The way single families are valued is not based on how much money they make. They're based on comparable sales. So if the guy next to me sells for 500 grand, mine's still going to be worth 500 grand regardless of how much money it brings in. But with hotels, if I buy a property that's doing $500,000 and I take it to $1 million, I just doubled the value of that property. So not only do you get more cash flow while you're holding it because it's a bigger deal, you have way more control and there's way more zeros on the back end of that transaction once you fix that deal up. So it's like, this is the game that I want to play in the hotel space, in the commercial real estate space. So that's what got me in there. So we did our first hotel deal in February of 2020. Then the next year, the two guys I partnered with, they ended up buying another hotel. I managed that one for them for a couple of years. Then in 2022, we bought a 57-room hotel. Just finished renovating that. That was a massive, massive renovation. That just completed 2 months ago. And we're about to kick off a new ground-up development on the beach in the Outer Banks. It'll be 47 rooms, 80-seat restaurant, plus an event space. That'll be kicking off in January. So the hotels are great. It's a game that has obviously gotten me out of my job, but it's also helped build incredible wealth for me and my family and the investors that we work with on these deals.
I didn't know that. That's pretty amazing how you guys have built this. So you're literally developing a hotel at this point from starting getting a house on credit cards 8 years ago.
Yeah, man. It's pretty crazy.
It sounds crazy to look back. I mean, it's just the momentum of showing up every day and building it. Look what it turned into, right?
There's just a compounding effect. And I remember probably 3 years ago, I was hanging out with somebody and they were like, man, like you've accomplished like all this stuff. And I was, things were growing really fast and everything was great. And they're like, how are you doing that? And I was like, listen, man, like since we've known each other the last 10 years, you've flip-flop careers and entrepreneurial opportunities like 6 times. I just stayed in this one lane with ridiculous focus and just went all in on this one thing, where you kept flip-flopping back and forth. The biggest issue with most entrepreneurs is you go out there and you start something and you start making a little bit of money. So then it programs in you of like, oh, well, if I want to make more money, I got to start this other thing. Or the grass is greener over here. No, you just haven't stayed in your lane long enough to see it through, right? Anybody that watched Alex Hormozy's launch a couple months ago, he did $100 million in 48 hours. That was like 8 years in the making. And everybody just sees like that one weekend of like, oh, well, I should start doing this. It's like, you haven't been paying attention the last 8 years. I remember when Alex was just getting going with Russell Brunson about 8 years ago. Like I was at those events. Like he's just stayed the path and he's been more disciplined than 99% of the population. And now he's seeing the big dividends. Same with Patrick Bet-David, any of these folks that have had huge success. They've just stayed in their lane long enough to see it through instead of jumping ship when it gets hard and starting something else because you think it's going to be easier over here. They all work. None of them are easy. You just got to decide that you're going to stay in it long enough to see it through to actually get the results. That's all it is.
A lot of people underestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year, and they overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year, and then they underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years. And so they just, the second that grass is greener, right? I think Alex Hormozy, somebody just told to me recently, has a funny line when it comes to the grass is greener. He's like, you think the grass is greener until you go on the other side and realize that it's like fake grass or something like that. It's like, there's always that illusion of like, hey, if I switch to this or switch to that. But like you said, you stuck through this. I'm sure being in business 8 years, you've had a lot of scary moments too. And it's just, I think, just about being and showing up every day. And that's half the battle, and just keep pushing. And eventually it's going to compound into, building your own hotels. What's the most amount of money you made in a single year?
Around so far, like $2 million.
That's amazing. How did that feel?
I'll answer that in 1 second. The one thing I want to leave listeners with too, because when I saw this graph, it really helped. And I've showed it on stage at STR WealthCon a couple months ago. It's called the emotional cycle of change. Okay, so when you start something new, you start with uninformed optimism, meaning you think it's going to be amazing and you don't know what you don't know. Okay, so you get things going and you start and you're on this high because it's this new and exciting thing. And you're putting one foot in front of the other and things are going. And then the further you go, you're like, oh shit, this is harder than I thought, right? And then you get into informed pessimism where like, wow, this is actually harder than I thought. And then you keep going and it gets harder and harder. And then at the bottom, there's this valley of despair where you start questioning like, why am I even doing this? Like this clearly isn't working. I'm trying everything. And this is where most people quit. But if you stick with it long enough, then you start to get some informed optimism of, I saw this thing through long enough to actually figure out some options that are going to work. And then you continue and then you actually hit success. And that happens over and over at every different phase that you get to in business. You're going to have that cycle to get to your first 5K a month. You're going to have that cycle to get to your first 10K a month, your first 20K, your first 50K, your first 100K month. Like all of that, you're going to go through that cycle every single time. And just remember that you just need to see it through. But the key is get yourself around people that have already been through those cycles and they'll tell you where the landmines are. They're the ones that are going to tell you. So at each one of those, I've had mentors and coaches in my life that were like, you're this close. Just don't stop. You're so close. Just watch out for this thing. Keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you're going to get on the other side. If I didn't have those people in my life, it would have been very easy to throw in the towel several times over the last 7 or 8 years. So just know that going into it. As far as, making a couple $1,000,000, like, it's great. Honestly, after $50,000 a month, like your lifestyle isn't going to change much and the money stops being motivating because you're comfortable. Like I have a really good lifestyle. I've got a beautiful home on the beach. I'm a member at a country club. I've got 3 cars. Like from a material standpoint, like I'm good. My kids are in great private school. Like all of those things are covered. The game becomes like, how far can I go and what's the impact that I want to make while I'm here? Like once you take care of all of your basic needs and you're good, like the money isn't fulfilling. The money is just a tool for you to have the impact that you want and to have the experiences that you want. One of the most fulfilling things that I do is I coach people through. I literally got a text this morning from somebody I was with last week that was freaking out because they really wanted to quit their job. They had gotten to that point financially where they could, but they were still freaking out of like letting go of that safety blanket. And they texted me this morning after going into an event with me last week, the resignation letter went in, they've got 2 weeks. Like to me, coaching people through that process is one of the most fulfilling things I can do. And then on the flip is on a financial standpoint, the amount that I'm able to give to some charities that I genuinely care about their mission is super fulfilling. Like I've had the CEO of some of these charities come in, have lunch with me. I've had them over my house. Like I support this company called Our Rescue, where they rescue kids from human trafficking. Like to me, it's one of the greatest things that I can do is support them do that work. And so over the years, I've become one of their top donors. I'm friends with the CEO. Like I love their mission. There's so much more fulfillment when you're helping people outside of yourself than if you're just thinking about yourself all the time. But when you're at the bottom, it's all about survival and making this thing work. Once you start making some money, then your focus and your goals and your motivation will flip. And it's way more empowering that way to keep going and keep growing from that point. So hopefully that makes sense.
It made a lot of sense. I loved the example you were saying about the valley of despair and going up and down, and you just have to kind of hold on until the end. I can totally relate to that being an entrepreneur, especially with my business. Every project can be an adventure. But I think that problems always end up solving themselves in the long run. And if you can just kind of hold on to the rope and just see it through and keep showing up, even when you don't know what to do, you'll find the right way to get out of it and keep moving forward. And business is all about also keep pushing the revenue. As long as you have the sales and the revenue, also the other things will start to work as well. And then lastly, how you say it about like your mission and how it's not just about money anymore. Like, you know, the lifestyle, it's once you have it, it's kind of set up. You've set it up in a way where that's going to maintain itself. But now it's not what makes you show up to work every day to get a paycheck. It's now you're here to make a difference, make a change other people's lives. You know, from the coaching business you have, I'm sure that's super fulfilling, seeing when you have a successful student that actually, you know, ends up seeing amazing results and took the time to invest. And I'm sure that's super rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, this office I'm sitting in right now, we just got the keys a couple weeks ago, but this is a new 10,000 square foot facility that we built out. Thank you. It's called the Freedom Factory. So now we're going to host regular events here that help people build up their portfolios, build their businesses to get out of the rat race. And so like, I could have went and used that money to go buy a bunch of fancy cars or vacations or whatever, but like, this is fun for me now. And because I have the resources, I can do cool stuff like this and build my own training center with a golf simulator and a pickleball court and an LED wall in it to like make an impact for people. That's like, holy shit, like I actually can change my life and have fun in the process. So like, this is only possible because I've built all these businesses and reinvested back into the businesses.
Where are you based out of, Michael?
I'm up in Beverly, so it's like 30 minutes north of Boston, Massachusetts.
Nice. Yeah. And then, so you've been in business 8 years. You've built this empire at this point. It sounds like with you know, your properties and coaching, and wife's involved in the business as well and has her own arm of it too. How do you balance family and business at the same time?
So I think the whole balance thing is a lie. So I don't think about like work-life balance. I think of work-life integration. So like, I don't have work days and non-work days. Like, my life is my life. Like, I just have hours in the day. So like, over the weekend, I took my son to his travel soccer game. We hung out for a bit. I worked on some orders for this office. I worked on some updates from an event that we did last week. I wanted to get my feedback down. Like, I just blend work, life, and play all into one. Some days on a Wednesday, like, I'm going to go golfing. Some Saturdays I might work for a few hours. Like, I don't look at it that way. Because when you do, especially at the beginning, you start beating yourself up around, oh, well, I shouldn't be working. Dude, I like what I do. Like, this is what I do for fun. So most people live their life like work is this bad thing. It's because you don't like what you're doing. Like, to me, this is just a fun game that I get to play every single day. So as long as you're clear about what you want, why you want it, and you're having fun doing it, like, it's just this dance. Like, my son, part of the reason I'm putting all this stuff in here is so then in the off season, my son can come in here. I'll have a half basketball court. I'll have a soccer field. Like, he can work on his soccer game or his basketball game, like, in my office. And then we can play hoops and do whatever. Like, I just design a life. I don't design like a work-life balance. Do I go on vacations and spend lots of time with my family? 100%. But it's not like, oh, I'm done I start at 9 and I'm done at 5. My life doesn't look like that anymore. I've engineered my life so I just work and play all day long every day.
When you started your business, was it like that during those brutal years of building it?
No, because they don't teach you that stuff in school. Like, the whole like grind and work hard and David Goggins and all this stuff, like, that's how I lived. I could grind with the best of them. I could live off of 4 hours of sleep with huge, bags under my eyes and just keep pushing. But like, that's not living, man. Like, that's not how it works. So give yourself some slack. Just realize the first couple of years, you're going to be way out of balance. You're going to be working your 9-to-5 job. You're going to be building this thing on nights and mornings and weekends. Like, that's part of the game, but that's okay. Just look at it as a sprint to here's where I want to get to. So then I have the revenue to build this team. And then find coaches, mentors, and whatever lane that you're in that have already done it to fast track it. Right? Like I told you, it took me 9 months to get my first co-hosting deal. My students now, it's 41 days on average to get their first deal. 41 days. Like, because I've just learned all this stuff along the way. So it's like, just do this. Don't do all this other crap that I used to do that didn't work. Just do this. It just works. So coaches and mentors and all these things, it's the cheat code. It's the fast lane. So the biggest investments I make every year, most people think are in real estate. It's not. It's in my network. I spend a lot of money to be in masterminds and around high-level people and hire coaches that are just further ahead of me because I know it's just going to catapult me to the next level way faster.
I love that. There's a lot to be said about the only shortcut in business is through somebody who's already done it and just learning from their mistakes. Before we wrap up here, how do you use AI and ChatGPT in your business?
Dude, that's evolved so much in the last 6 months. So again, like for me, like I'm not really involved in like the nuts and bolts of like running the business anymore. Like from the properties to like I have teams that are doing the stuff in the business, but for me, it helps a lot with my thoughts and vision, and even simple example of like, okay, I've never built out an event space. I have our first event here November 9th. I need to figure out what we need for audio video equipment. I asked my videographer to send me a list of everything, which he did. I throw that list in ChatGPT and I'm like, hey, here's pictures of the space. Here's how many people it's going to sit. Here's what the layout's going to be. What are we missing? And then it sends me this whole list of all this stuff with images and like data and all these things. You're listening to the podcast, you should watch it on YouTube because like it's just this endless screen. I'm like, cool, send me all the links with the best prices for this. Hey, send me the layout of where I need to install all this stuff. What does the map look like? Like, I just use it for that. It's the fastest employee on the planet that you can have. So just learning, I've gotten a lot better with learning how to prompt it and do all these different things, but inside of the business, we're using it for a ton of stuff. Like we're big on process and systems and SOPs. We've been working on this thing for the last 6 months where we have basically a done for you like Notion playbook for our students that has AI built into it. So takes all of their properties, builds out this whole playbook. Their team can use it, ask AI when they have questions. It's ridiculous. Everything from that to the marketing, listing optimization, reviewing pricing, creating owner lists for us for prospecting. Like it's taken over so much stuff. I mean, it's pretty much involved in every area of all of our businesses at this point.
Does it actually pull like an owner list? Like it can pull data of like homeowners' names and phone numbers and emails and stuff? Or is it more like organize the data?
Well, you can organizing the data for sure. But now if you build the GPTs, it's basically doing what you're telling it to do. So we have this whole process of like skip tracing and finding owner information, all this stuff. You can build that out into a GPT and just have the computer go do all that stuff now, which is wild. Like you're telling it what to do. Here's the list. Follow this process for it. It'll spit it out.
I don't think I understand the GPTs. So is it like the projects inside where they have like their own prompt, or it's actually like the agent where it does like
the agent thing, right? So it's basically like
I haven't
digital
done that yet.
human going in and doing all of this stuff.
I gotta learn how to do that one.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
You know, AI concierge, the guest calls, they think it's a person. It's a robot. It sounds like a person that's making them, you know, dinner recommendations. Like it's crazy.
That's awesome. Oh, for your Airbnbs, like they're local and they're calling for like
for the hotels.
Wow. That's pretty smart. Where can people find you, follow your journey, or invest alongside you?
Probably the best place is Instagram. It's just Mike.Sjogren. We'll get you the links. It's SJOGREN is how you spell my last name. I'm pretty active on Instagram. You can listen to one of our podcasts, which my team now runs, so you don't hear me on there much anymore, but it's Short-Term Rental Secrets, or STR Secrets. We've had that podcast going since 2019, I believe. But yeah, those are probably the best places. We've got free Facebook groups and YouTube channels and all that stuff, but I would say I'm most active on Instagram.
Michael, your story is the blueprint for every young entrepreneur who's stuck in a 9-to-5 and dreaming bigger. From crunching numbers as a CPA to owning hotels and building a movement, this conversation showed me exactly how it's done step by step. For anyone listening who wants to learn more, check out Short-Term Rental Secrets and STR WealthCon, and make sure to follow Michael for daily game-changing insights.